Hello and welcome to this week's Property Matters, the show that brings global industry trends to an Irish audience. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by email at hello@iPropertyRadio.com. Your host today is Carl Talent and myself, Brian Fox.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So today we're going to be talking about the rental market, but maybe from a different angle than we normally do. So before we get started on that, I just wanted to bring to your attention, the Irish Times ran an interesting piece today about the incentives on offer for first-time buyers, purely because at this moment in time, it's now cheaper to pay a mortgage than to rent. So just for people who are maybe circling around with their mortgage situation and they're not sure where to start, just to direct you to the Help to Buy scheme. So this is the scheme whereby first-time buyers can claim relief of income tax paid over the past 3 years, up to 5% of the total value of the property, up to a maximum of 20,000 on the basis of buying a property to a maximum value of €500,000. So the other incentive there is the Rebuilding Ireland Home Loan Scheme. Now, this particular scheme offers mortgages at reduced rates, so from 2% fixed for up to 25 years, which is phenomenal, and actually 2.25% up to 30 years for first-time buyers. But the conditions here are that the first-time buyers must have been refused a mortgage or offered insufficient finance from at least 2 main lenders. So the thresholds here for Dublin, Cork, Galway, Kildare, Louth, Meath and Wicklow are for property values up to 288,000, while those in remaining counties can borrow 225,000. By the way, if you're building your first home, the same criteria applies to the total build cost, and crucially for borrowers, the Help to Buy and the Rebuilding Ireland scheme can be used together. So that's our tip for renters who are looking to get on the property ladder this week. Also, I just wanted to bring to your attention as well, quick note that UK company Placetech, they're hosting an event next Tuesday morning, the 5th of November, at the Morrison Hotel in Dublin. All details can be found on propertydistrict.ie, and the event features speakers from Smart Dublin, Shaporji Palonji, Sherry Fitzgerald and myself, so I hope to see you all there. So, as I mentioned, today we've got something a little bit different. We are talking about the rental market, but from the perspective of rental and pets. So our first guest in studio, I'm delighted to welcome Tim Kirby, veterinary surgeon and Petbond founder. So you're very welcome, Tim. So
thank you, Carl.
To get started, what is Petbond?
Thank you, Carl. Petbond is a new online platform where anybody that's looking to get a new pet can actually safely log on to and find a happy pet. Now, one of the key points about Petbond is it's run by vets, and I manage the team of vets myself as well. So critical to what Petbond is that we only feature healthy pets on our website, which is very, very important as well. Now, people can log on, they can choose either a rescue centre pet, so we work with registered rescues right across Ireland, and we also work with approved breeders. So we're bringing in safety measures to protect the public and the pets that are featured.
When you talk about breeders, I definitely come from the ethos, and I've spoken about it frequently here, coming from a dairy farm as well. You know, we're very much in favour of rescuing animals as opposed to breeders. So in terms of the breeders you're featuring, how can we be sure that they're not puppy farms? And because that's the main concern that people have when they're going to a main breeder, or at least it should be.
Well, it is, Carl, and you're quite right to point it out. So what Petbond does is we have a unique quality assurance system that's literally baked into the core of what we do as well. And that's designed by a team of vets. And ultimately, I decide myself whether the people that apply fit the criteria so that we can feature the pets or not. Now, for breeders, it's a very, very unique uploading process where we literally vet the breeder, and we also vet the pet as well to make sure they meet the criteria that we demand. So I suppose where the public can be reassured is in the fact that we get to know the breeders individually, we get to know that they're doing the job right, we get to know that the pet has been examined by a vet, and we also get to know the actual identity of the pet itself. So what we do, Carl, is we ensure that the pet is microchipped, we ensure there's traceability as well. And I think the beauty about getting to know the individual breeder is that before we even connect the public with the pet, that we can be assured that we're dealing with someone legitimate as well.
Yeah.
And I suppose really what it is, Carl, is we're bringing a lot of good people together. So I have a firm belief in life that if you incentivise good people, you can create change.
So these people come to you though, Tim, right?
That's correct.
The dog owners.
Yes.
And do dog owners know you now at this point, or how do you get the word out?
I suppose like any startup, Brian, we're trying our best to spread the word. We're across all social media platforms. Literally word of mouth goes a long way too. And what we're doing is we're working with senior stakeholders in the pet industry in Ireland. And as I said, we're getting as many people around the table as we can to say that, okay, there is a very, very dark side to the pet industry in Ireland as well. But again, with the increasing demand for pets, somebody has to supply pets.
There is an increasing demand for them.
There is, and I think one very, very important point to mention as well is that prevention beats cure. So a lot of people say to me, how can you actually work with breeders? And the response I give is we can't rely on rescue centre pets forever, because if we keep kind of fueling that aspect of it as well, people, one of their default positions is let's go to the rescue centre or to the pound. But the reality is pets should not be in rescue centres. It's not a normal, and I don't think it's a good enough default position all the time. But every single pet that is in a rescue centre should get a home as soon as possible. Yeah. So the way we see it,
Sorry, Tim, just because I'm conscious that there might be people listening in and thinking, this is a property show, why are we talking about this?
Yes.
And one of the reasons why we're talking about this is that we know from many, we're talking about dogs in this context, but actually many pets are being surrendered because their owners have a change in circumstances and maybe need to go into rental property, and the majority of landlords are not accepting pets. In fact, if you go on to After My Home and look at properties for rent and actually tick the selection box that allows pets, chances are it's well under 10% across Ireland right now today who allow pets. So there seems to be kind of there's a lack of thought around this. And I know one of the things that you maintain is that actually responsible pet owners are actually more likely to be better tenants, and so therefore less risk for the landlord. And I think that's an interesting thing that hasn't been spoken about before.
But is this is landlords in apartments or in houses or both?
Both.
I would say both, Brian. And
unfortunately, though, in apartments, sometimes it's not the landlord's choice.
It's to a large degree, I suppose.
Well, unfortunately, in most apartments, there's a standard. There's generally a standard management company contract there that said no pets, and everything has to be worked to an exclusion of that. But that's not. I don't think that's realistic as we move towards as society that's going to be living in apartments more. The other side of it is our large dog that we rescued while living in an apartment in Spain with a terrace but no garden. And in fact, it's quite normal for countries where people have been living in apartments for decades. They're well familiar with having children and pets and everything in apartments. But in Ireland, we can't even get our head around having children, not to talk about pets in apartments.
Because that's the question as to why landlords are so deter pets coming into their property.
I think a lot of it, Brian, is you go back to tradition. That traditionally, a pet is going to cause trouble. People perceive that it cause chaos, that it would damage the property. Now, as Carl pointed out, we're moving to a society where millennials are the fastest growing pet owning population in Ireland.
Okay.
So their expectations are a little bit different as well. And I think where again, it's like I said earlier, we have to kind of cooperate and incentivise these people as well.
The landlords.
Yes, and the tenants as well. Because otherwise you're kind of in a perfect storm where pet ownership is increasing. And obviously with supply and demand of property, there's pressure top down, bottom up as well. So how do you reconcile supply and demand, considering that the landlord is somewhere in between as well, trying to negotiate? So what I would say is that we have to sometimes take a step back from traditional views of pets as well. So our social awareness around pets is changing. We obviously know that having pets in the workplace improves productivity. And when you scrape beneath the surface of that and you wonder, why is that true? We actually realise that pets make people happy. So if you're happy at work, you're more likely to be productive as well.
And is that a practice now with some factories that they or office that they actually allow their?
Absolutely.
I can tell you Property District is pet friendly, and my little Daisy comes into the office quite frequently. The big one's not always so welcome.
The other question I want to put to Tim is in relation to pet owners and homes and so forth. I don't know if you have an answer to this, but principally speaking, do they buy them for the sake of security or for company or both?
Primarily now, Brian, it would be for companionship. In previous times, people have got them as like a guard dog, security mechanism in itself as well. But one of the key things, and probably the main reason people get a dog, is to have a bond with a pet. It's very difficult to describe it unless you've had a pet or you've had kind of first-hand experience of a family member and you've seen the change in that person as well. Because we know that the simple act of even stroking a dog releases the good hormones like dopamine, oxytocin, and they're actually proven to offset depression, described as one of the best cures for loneliness as well. So we've got quantifiable medical evidence that shows that anybody that has a pet is going to benefit. And that includes landlords. There's
a huge social benefit as well, though, because, I mentioned there that we rescued our large dog while living in Spain. Yeah. My spoken Spanish would be very poor, but actually I found that people were more likely to stop and talk to me with the dog and struggle through my broken Spanish. So actually, despite the fact that we'd been there actually maybe a year by the time he came to live with us, actually my social life changed when he came. And in fact, just this morning I was in Naas doing the banking and I brought my 2 dogs because it was nail clipping time before we headed to the office. So I brought my 2 dogs with me. It was a beautiful autumn morning in Naas this morning. And I sat outside the Harvest Cafe on the corner, had my coffee outside. My dogs are known there. Sausages are brought out. And 3 different people stopped to chat to me while I was outside. Now, I was sitting on my own outside having a coffee, but with the dogs. If I'd been sitting on my own, 3 strangers separately would not have stopped to talk to me while having my coffee. The fact that my dogs were there, 3 different people stopped. The fact that 2 of them, by the way, thought that my dog was a guide dog made me think I shouldn't wear sunglasses in autumn. But I still had conversations with 3 strangers that I definitely would not have had if I didn't have the dogs. So there's so many reasons, and forcing yourself to get out and walk. Like again, this weekend was beautiful autumn weekend. Where the tendency might be to be a little bit lazy when you've dogs, you can't do that. So the benefits of having a dog, actually, even if you're only to think about the benefits to the human, not even the dog, you can be massively selfish and say the benefits are so huge. So it's great to be able to benefit the dog as well, but the human benefits are just so huge.
I'd say, Carol, that's correct. It's like a two-way process because, a lot of people, when they get a dog, it gives them a structure. As you said, it gives them a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And just as you alluded to there, it's one of the best icebreakers for people. So for people that are socially awkward and might find it difficult to connect with people, to generate conversation, as you said, there's nothing better than having a dog because people are magnetised and gravitate towards
the other point I just want to investigate a little bit more is, Tim, you were saying that, I think you were saying that earlier, that pet owners tend to be better tenants.
Yep.
Is that, how does that work out? How does that figure?
It's because one of the key traits with pet owners is that they tend to be more responsible people. Because if you have a pet straight away, you have obligations, you have duties of care as well. Right. And it's actually a proven fact that pet owning people are more responsible people as well. So that's probably saying to all the people that are listening that don't have a pet, to get a pet. Absolutely. Yeah. So it'll solve a lot of problems for a lot of people by actually getting a pet as well. So I think what we got to do in Ireland is we just got to...
But aren't they hassle? Dogs are a hassle.
They're not really, Brian.
Children are a hassle. Dogs are a pleasure.
It depends what your definition of hassle.
You have to feed the dog, you have to walk it, you have to do all that sort of. Cat is a lot. Just concentrating on dog. What's the incentive? It is obviously for
they make you happier
and so forth.
They're proven to be good for your health is number one.
Yeah.
Number 2 is that they'll give you a routine.
Yeah.
So I have a little dog. She wakes up at 5:29 every morning, not 5:28 or 5:31. Right. So that's a structure as well. But again, it gives you an opportunity to express care and love for an animal as well. And we know the very, very close links between people that express that for an animal and that express it for a human as well. And as I said previously, the medical benefits to your health, not only your physical health of walking, but your mental health as well. And as we live in a digital age and people are more challenged with iPhones, it's becoming more and more important as well.
Tim, can I ask, just in terms of your platform, I'm hearing from other charities that I'm in touch with, rehoming charities, that more and more dogs are being surrendered because people are moving from one home into another, generally rental, and their new landlord won't allow pets. So you have families who are quite distressed at having to give up their animals. And this is a really, it's a really uncomfortable situation. It's an unnecessary situation as well. So, is there an awareness that needs to happen around landlords, or maybe does it need to happen around the estate and managing agents, so that they don't automatically advise their landlord to say, their client to say no property or no animals in the property? Because I saw that actually Owen Riley, who would be one of the busier independent estate agents in Dublin, they have, he was speaking online that they have a policy of absolutely allowing pets or advising their landlords to allow pets in suitable properties where it's a pet that's suitable to the property. And what they do is they actually look for a slightly larger deposit just by way of security, which I think sounds very fair. As a pet owner, I think that's fair, because no, I don't think my dogs would cause any damage outside that of normal wear and tear or family life. However, I understand that an extra deposit being paid to give that peace of mind to a landlord, I think it's a really sound idea if it moves us to a point where landlords start to consider allowing pets into their properties.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, Carol, and I think the word you use there as well is that if it's appropriate and a suitable pet as well, because I don't think anybody's trying to justify bringing a husky into a one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
So we have to have an intelligent, middle-of-the-road conversation about it, really. And I don't know if you're aware that in countries like Tasmania, it's called a Petbond as well, interestingly enough. But what that is where people do pay an increased fee. So really that would offset any risk to the landlord as well. But as we know, the risk is very, very low. So when you do your risk-benefit assessment, it does favour the landlord.
Do we have anything like that in Ireland?
We don't, Carol. But again, I think a lot of people that I've spoken to about this, they come back and they say that the actual rents are so high. Where would somebody source another €50 a month to pay into this pet bond? So, I mean, we're very open to discussing this with people in the sector if they do want to set up a scheme where we can look at it.
Do you speak to landlords in relation to this yourself?
We do, Brian. We speak
what's their reaction to you in relation to that?
A lot of them do it through gritted teeth. They say that we would like to do it, but the rents are so high. How are we going to get that sweet spot where we're not being exploited by a landlord? Why
do they feel that dogs are an encumbrance on the property?
A lot of the landlords would feel that the risk, is great, that the puppy would damage the property. It's out of fear, really. But a lot of landlords that would do that wouldn't have any direct experience with dogs as well.
That was my next question.
So there's like an education gap as well.
There is an education gap, you think?
There is across the board in general, not just landlords themselves as well.
In relation to animals.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm actually going to give a piece of advice to anybody who's renting at the moment, who actually has already been told maybe that they're not allowed pets in the rental property that they're living in, that actually if they speak to the landlords directly and speak to them about wanting to bring a pet into it, most landlords, if you're already living in the property, the landlord will have a certain relationship with you, will see how you treat the property if you're a responsible person, that actually once that relationship has been established, it's definitely worth, if you're considering becoming a pet owner, it's definitely worth it.
Isn't it?
It is,
from that point of view, because it does seem to be, from speaking to you now, it does seem to be as you say, a fear of them coming in, and really there's really no great justification for it.
There's not, Brian, but most people have their dogs trained.
But that's not in terms of the landlord.
So again, it's back to the risk-benefit assessment.
Yeah.
So if somebody with a dog is likely to stay longer in your rental property as well, that's better for you.
Well, that's absolutely true as well. Yeah, that they would stay longer, and we are looking at putting together longer leases.
Absolutely.
Brian, do you have any pets?
No.
Then that might explain why you're the only person around the table that wasn't smiling then.
No, I mean, it's
our sound producer agrees.
I know plenty of people that have pets, and I mean, they're part of the family.
They absolutely are.
Absolutely are, and it's increasing more and more, Brian. That trend. Yeah. So, as I said at the outset, I think we have to start embracing this instead of polarising people. So it's how do you get the middle ground where unfounded fears, bring education across the board to everybody as well, and agree on a reasonable structure that does work in other countries. So it should work here as well.
Yeah.
So who's going to be the catalyst that pushes the button that says, okay, let's collectively put a system in place where we can change this.
Let's try start that today.
It's a topic that I haven't really heard discussed at all on TV or radio or in media in this country at all. But Tim Kirby, for now, thank you for coming into the studio. That was Tim Kirby, veterinary surgeon and Petbond founder. After the break, we talked to Clare Connolly, managing director of Clare Connolly Estate Agents.
Everything's fine on 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Oh, will you look at them go? I wish I had their energy.
They're good for the soul, though, aren't they? I can't imagine life without Lucky. But he might outlive me yet.
Oh, well, take my advice and sign up for a Dogs Trust Canine Care card. It's completely free, and it's given me such peace of mind since I did.
What's that?
Well, it's simple, really. It means if you pass away before Lucky, Dogs Trust will take him in and give him the care and love he needs until they match him with the perfect forever home.
That sounds terrific. How much did you say it costs?
It doesn't cost a cent.
Great. How do I sign up?
Just text CARE to 50100 and they'll call you with more information. Or you can go to dogstrust.ie.
Well, that's wonderful advice. I'll do that right away. Here, Lucky. Good boy.
Whatever loan you're looking for, wedding loans, holiday loans, car or home improvement loans, make sure you talk to your local Capital Credit Union, where there are no hidden charges or early repayment penalties on your loan. Loans subject to approval, terms and conditions apply. Capital Credit Union Limited, regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Senior Line is a confidential telephone service for older people. Free phone 1800 80 45 91. We're open every day of the year from 10 a.m. till 10 p.m, including Christmas Day and New Year. So it's free phone 1800 80 45 91. We're there if you need someone to talk to and need someone to listen. We're older people too, so we will understand, and we're very good at listening. Did you get the Senior Line number? It's free phone 1800 80 45 91.
Your community radio for South Dublin. This is Dublin South FM.
And welcome back to Property Matters here in Dublin South FM with Carol Talon and myself, Brian Fox. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or our email hello@iPropertyRadio.com. So as mentioned before the break, we're now joined by Managing Director Clare Connolly. Clare Connolly is Managing Director of Clare Connolly Estate Agents. So thanks for coming in, Clare.
Now, Clare, thank you so much. We've been talking so much about the rental market in Dublin. Things are feeling quite negative at the moment. Just at the start of the show, I spoke about how it's cheaper to have a mortgage than rent in Dublin, and every time we think there's kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, it turns out not to be so. The rent pressure zones are maybe not having as much of an impact on the market, slowing down the market as we would have liked to see at this point. So you're operating across South Dublin. You might just give us an overview of the marketplace there at the moment.
Sure, and thanks for having me on, Carol. So what I'm seeing is the higher end rents around the 2.5, say 2,500 per month. They're slower to move, obviously. There's still in demand there, but the rents that are capped, and this is where, as you know, you can go in at 4%, no more than 4%. And we have, I would say, hundreds of emails, hundreds of calls, and it's extremely difficult because this is the affordability factor. This is what people can afford, but the demand is just so high that it is just, we're at the door with tenants.
So as a lettings agent, and I know you have a team operating out of Dundrum,
yes.
How do you manage? You know,
yes.
even with the team, how do you manage for one property if you're getting hundreds of applications? How can you tell?
Yes, it's extremely difficult, and because we have almost tenants are irate and they're angry and saying, look, you know, why aren't we being called for a viewing? So the only way, the fairest way we can do it is that we get all the inquiries in via DAFT, or we will get phone calls, but mainly through DAFT. So we might say have about 300 emails.
For one property?
Literally, the ad will go up.
For the high-end property now?
No, this is where they're capped, Brian. Yeah, it's the high-end, it'll be slower because it's the affordability factor, but this is where people can afford them, and the demand is so high. So, you know, we get these calls, as I say, it could be about within 5 minutes of the ad going live, we could have about, I'd say, 150 emails, literally. So the only way to do it is to pick the first 40. And from that, it's the only fairest way to do it. And from that then is to go back and email or phone the 40 and say, look, we will have our viewing, say 3 days' time, if you can make it along. And usually from that 40, there's about 20 will come along. You normally get about 20% or 50% coming along. So then on the day, we take we ask every tenant to email in all their references. We don't, because you just haven't got the time to scan them all in. So they will email them in. So let's say we get 10 who come back to us. There might even be 15. We then email them onto the landlord, and then I will have a call with the landlord. And this is the only way we can do it. Sit down and then, or not sit down, but have a conversation over the phone to say, look, here's who we have. And we will not, our office, Carol, will not make the decision because it's just not fair.
Yeah.
Because out of all those tenants, nearly all have the same criteria. So how do you make the decision?
That's interesting, isn't it?
Oh.
If everybody's presenting equally.
Yes. I mean,
how
they've
do you
all
choose
got,
one?
you know, and also we also have to take HAP as well. We're also obliged to take HAP. Obviously, as a landlord has to take HAP. So we have a number of HAP tenants. We would have a number of professional tenants. So it's a matter of going through the list, and then we will guide the landlord and say, you know, it could be down to maybe how soon can a tenant move in. Obviously, the landlord doesn't want a void period. So say somebody might be in a lease and they can't say they're looking now, but they're not able to move in for a month, then that might actually restrict their chance of getting the property. So if we know, say for instance, somebody's got really good criteria and that they can move in the following weekend, that will also go in their favour, because I will get calls all the time from tenants saying, what can we do? What do we need to do to secure this property?
Well, actually, that's what I was going to say. No, this show really is designed for the industry. We're speaking to landlords. However, let's turn that on its head and speak to tenants for a few moments.
Yes.
How is there any advice you can give to tenants? What would set them apart? Because I'm very conscious of the very recent daft ruling that doesn't allow you ask about the workplace anymore.
No, you can't.
And you can't get work references anymore.
Well, you can actually get a work reference, but it's literally from HR stating that they're in permanent employment or they're in temporary employment. But you can't get any more information
But you
beyond
can't
that.
discriminate against somebody who's not working.
No, you can't. You can't, because in actuality you will have somebody who might be on the HAP scheme, they might just have a part-time job or not employed. But
so what can tenants do? So say tenants, irrespective of their position, because their position is what it is.
Exactly.
But what can they say that would make them more attractive to a landlord?
Okay, what I would say is, might even stand out to me if say you have a young couple coming in or a family or whatever, and they have a lovely covering email or a nice letter or even a picture.
Really?
Yes, and it's because it makes it a lovely, very personal effect. A nice photograph of them, maybe the family.
You may actually know more about this than I do, and I've only heard this hearsay. That it's a similar situation in the San Francisco area with Silicon Valley and all the rest of it.
Yes.
So what they're actually doing is having to send love letters.
What?
telling the property owner why they want the apartment.
Why they deserve to pay peak prices to rent it.
Yeah.
I know.
I haven't heard this before. So what tenants?
And the best letter will then get the...
Are they actually called love letters?
Well, they're called love letters now, by colloquially speaking.
I love that concept.
Yeah, I love that as well. But you know, it's not too far off here, Brian. That's exactly what they're doing.
From what you're
they're
saying
trying to put
yes.
their argument forward as to why should a landlord
This
choose.
is the very point. Yes. Well, that's more the point. It's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So what should go into this love letter? I'm not familiar with love letters in the last couple of decades. What should go into these?
Sure.
Well, just for instance, a recent couple, it was just a photograph of the two of them on the top,
That's
and then
exactly,
just to say exactly a little bit of their
so
background.
It's like a CV, isn't it?
It's
really?
almost but a very
resume.
friendly, but like a personal,
Yeah.
and their hobbies, what they like doing. You know, if they like cooking, or you know, just a little bit about themselves. It just makes them stand out a little bit more.
Can I ask?
It's a tip then, is it?
It is a tip, Brian.
And landlords like it as well.
They do, because it's a personal, you know, it makes them more personal. I mean, I know we're the go-between.
Yeah.
But to be honest, in this market, the landlord makes the decision. They'll be guided by us, but we send on all the emails and everything. They know exactly what they're going through, and then we sit down.
So I suppose you personalise your application.
That's it, exactly, Brian. Yeah, you're personalising your application.
That reminds me of, you know, the US trend to put photographs on your business cards. So I have to ask, the couple who did that and sent the photograph, were they Irish?
They were.
Were they?
Sorry, actually, she was Irish. He was American.
Okay, no, because that seems like not a very Irish thing to do.
You're probably right, but it's becoming.
Our sound producer's
more
not
the norm.
Sorry, Danny.
But it is. But to be honest, it does. It makes a tenant stand out that little bit more, because
I think it's
so
a great
hard to
idea.
differentiate.
No, genuinely, I think it's a great idea, and I think, by the way, I think it must be so disheartening for tenants who are currently looking for property. And actually, I saw just kind of really as an aside with the Dublin City Marathon yesterday, and our housing
Sunday,
minister, or Monday, and our housing minister mentioned that he was starting the race, and that he expected to come in behind Junior Minister Damien English.
Yeah.
And there was lots of comments, just as pleasant and unpleasant as you'd expect, and underneath. But there was a couple of people who just had one-liners saying, "I'm trying to find a property in Dublin, can you help?" And I thought, imagine tweeting the housing minister, like imagine feeling that level of desperation that you just can't get your hands on a property in the place where you're living.
Speaking of that desperation then, looking forward, do you see any improvement in the market at all? Do you see any...
Well, bit by bit,
on the market.
The supply is beginning to meet the demand that bit more. I mean, you probably see all around Dundrum yourself here, Carl. I'm sure you see it. You've got Fernbank. That's just purely for rent only. They're not for sale. They're for renting. So is Herbert Hill. All around the Dundrum area. So that they're not too far off being finished. In actual fact, the one on Fernbank is finished. So bit by bit, they'll be released onto the market. And mind you, they're at a high rent.
I was going to ask you that.
That is the only thing. They're at the high rent. That's why. But supply is beginning to meet demand that little bit more. But it's the affordability as well.
And what's that due to? I mean, is that due to the economy slowing down or what?
Oh, I think there's a number of factors really.
More supply?
Yes.
There's more supply.
There is more supply. That is. But as I say, when you've capped properties, and that is beginning to have effect. It is depressing the rents a little bit.
Well, that's good. That's
which
the
is
effect
positive.
it was supposed to have.
That's why he brought it in originally. Was for that reason alone.
I'm wondering if we can kind of correlate the cycle with sale prices. Maybe 18 months ago, correlate that with the rental market today. So, for example, 18 months ago, we started to see sale prices in Dublin slow down, but at the upper end of the market.
Exactly.
So, we were saying, okay, anything above 750,000 is slow to move. And then over the course of 12 months, suddenly that was anything above 650 is slow to move.
And it's probably even 5 now, I'd say.
And now, exactly, it's 5. So if you're starting to see a slowdown at the higher end of the rental market, is this the way that cycles go? Is this the trend it goes? And I know rental is very different to sales.
No, but you're right.
But supply is really coming on board.
It is.
We've seen the majority of planning permissions through the fast track process have been for the private rented sector, these PRS schemes.
Yes.
So, and the majority of those have been delivered with modular and offsite and modern methods of construction. So the speed of delivery is much, much faster than anything we've seen before. So we are seeing schemes delivered within 9 to 12 months. That had never happened before.
No.
So
no, that's true.
So that increased supply, most of those were in and around South Dublin.
Yes.
So actually, that means we should be looking at a supply certainly helping the marketplace to level out in 2020.
And I think we will see that.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Really?
I do.
You're optimistic?
I am very optimistic. But usually as well, when you see a drop in, say, CV in capital value, it does usually mean that there will be a drop in rent as well. There's a correlation there. But I do definitely agree with you that supply is beginning to meet the demand, so that by 2020. No, you're okay, Brian.
Do you think it also applies to areas south of here, like Wicklow, Bray, that type of? Is there still as big a crisis down in that area?
I'm not sure. It wouldn't be the same as in Dublin. No, definitely not. And rents would be an awful lot lower as well outside of Dublin, as you know.
Because the pressure,
but they also haven't seen the supply. The supply hasn't really gone into Wicklow. So I was looking at the marketplace
down there, I suppose, than anything else.
Exactly.
Greystones, Wicklow town.
Yeah.
They're still very much under pressure, right down as far as Arklow. In fact, we had North Wexford and South Wicklow based estate agent Michael Kinsley into the show a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about the supply there, but it's mainly to the residential market as opposed to sales market as opposed to the rental market.
Okay.
So we've got first time buyers going out there to buy rather than rent in South Dublin.
So without getting into party politics or anything like that, do you feel that the government, present, obviously we're getting into politics, we are getting into government politics, is going anywhere near the addressing the needs for your market?
Well, They are. If you're talking about the capped rents and the different schemes that are being brought in by the government, they are helping. It is helping to bring rents down, most definitely.
Taking a while.
It will. But for instance, if you go in at market rent, let's say you go in at full market rent at, say, 1.8 for an apartment, and then the capped rent is say 1,300. Well, of course, people are going to question it. Like, why is that at 18 the same apartment, the other's at 13?
Yeah.
So it is. Landlords will be forced to bring that down, even though they think they're going to get market rent. They will, because they're not going to pay that. They will be forced to come down. So. I definitely think it is having an effect. Definitely, it is having a positive effect on the market. And as supply meets demand, then obviously it will. The rents will have to come down and they will level off.
But that's as much as we can hope for from
It
policymakers. They
Yes.
can only facilitate the market conditions and provide for the best market conditions. But the market will dictate a certain amount itself. And that's one thing we've seen. We saw it during the crash and we saw it during the recovery.
But there's
and
just
the rental
there's
discount.
generic despondency and cynicism about the whole market in Ireland, but just not about your market.
I know.
You'd sort of look for hope, really. In all the
but
what we're hearing every day of the week.
I know, but. There's so much going on, though. I mean, you have, of course, you don't want to mention the word Brexit.
The B word,
Jeez, if we get that out of the way, at some stage, and the central bank ruling as well. Obviously, that's people can only afford, and that's why we're saying that anything over 5 now.
Do you feel that's helpful, or what?
It is. I'm in the sense that it's going to prevent another awful downturn. We never want to go through that again. So. Okay, there probably have to be some relaxing of the rules to allow people to borrow. They're going to have to. People still need to buy houses. They have to borrow, say, over your 500. They still will need to. There might be some relaxing, but at the same time, it's a good thing.
It
stops that awful manic. If you remember, we all, oh God, looking back on it, So that's having some sort of
outside.
Claire,
exactly.
At the start of the show, we were actually talking about the attitudes of Irish landlords to pets.
Yes.
Now, you're obviously dealing with Irish landlords. What's your experience of that? Do all of them not want pets, or do you, as a managing agent and letting agent, not want pets?
I would say landlords definitely do not want pets.
They don't. Okay.
No, but I can say, though, that as a managing agent, and to be honest, I have so many calls from people with pets and saying, gosh, can we not, how come the landlord won't take it? Like, say, the Swiss, the French, they just cannot get over it. They're in shock. Like, why? Because they will, they're so pet friendly in those countries, in most of Europe. But what I try to go back to my landlord, I'd say, look, they've shown me photographs. They would adamantly say, no, I am not taking on a pet. And I'd say, look, just hold your horses. Let's go through it first. The photograph of the dog, or say the cat. Yeah. A pet bio. That this is literally I just placed somebody in Dalkey, a pet bio and a pet reference from a previous owner in the States.
So actually, there was a reference not just for the tenant, but for the pet from the previous landlord.
From a bio of the pet to say, here's the photograph, and this is what age I am. I'm fully trained. I'm fully a whole bio. How long they've had it. I've been part of this family, and then the landlord reference. So that would be step one.
I don't know if you heard Tim on the first part of the show, though, but I mean, there seems to be a huge resistance towards pets in this country.
There is, and it's. I think it will change. I mean,
I think as we move towards more apartment living, it will change.
It will have to change.
I love that approach.
Yes, but you see, if you can make it secure, though, Carol, basically the references, and then you have a pet deposit, so it gives reassurance to the landlord. I've got a great deposit, pet deposit.
Yeah, and one of the things as well. One of the things is that yes, we want to see a changing of rules here, but I'm just conscious of you were saying that on one property you might get 150 phone calls in the first 5 or 10 minutes. Is having a pet putting somebody on the back foot?
To be honest, it is, Carol. I hate saying it, but
no, that's the reality.
It is. When you have 150, you can't. Whereas maybe at the higher end, where you have, say, maybe 10, and then one of them has a pet, and they're going to be great tenants. It makes it easier. I hate saying that, but it does.
No, that's the reality, and that's the reality. Kind of what we've long suspected. Yeah.
I just hope it does change, though, as you say, you know. But maybe as more and more apartments, which if it is going to be apartment,
so obviously the Continentals are well used to having
but they are,
in their apartments.
Absolutely. Yeah. The French, the Swiss, they all are. They just cannot get over
their
their shock.
We have a very negative attitude to them here, obviously.
You know, we do. And I think that really will have to change. But I think it will. Given time, it will.
But where's it going to start? Today? Yes, I hope we start this conversation.
Maybe Tim will work on that one.
Good. That's what we want to see. Okay.
Yeah.
Claire, thank you so much for being with us today. That was Clare Connolly,
Carol.
Managing Director at Clare Connolly, estate agent across South Dublin. That's it for part 2. Stay tuned after the break. We'll be speaking to Kate McQuillan, co-owner of Pet Sitters Ireland. Stay tuned.
Your community radio for South Dublin. This is Dublin South FM.
Could you and your dog spend 1 hour per week bringing special moments to people in care centres? Or would you like one of our volunteer visiting teams to come and visit your care centre? At Irish Therapy Dogs, we have a dedicated interest in the use of pet therapy for people in long-term or daily residential care. A professional organisation aimed at providing a pet therapy service on a national basis. If you with your dog would like to get involved, or if you would like one of our visiting teams to visit your care centre, then please call us on 01 544 6198 or visit irishtherapydogs.ie for more information.
Do you need a professional-looking website or graphics for your company? Does your current website work on all modern devices, such as tablets and smartphones? If not, you are losing business. Preamp Digital Media provides a full range of solutions to give your company the edge in today's digital world. Please visit www.preampdigitalmedia.com for all the information you need. That's www.preampdigitalmedia.com.
I've always provided. That's what I do. Even when the job shut down, I somehow managed. But the pressure chips away at your confidence. I felt alone. I needed to talk things out. I learned Samaritans isn't just for when you hit rock bottom. I'm glad I called.
It's always worth getting problems big and not so big off your chest. Call Samaritans. No pressure, no judgment. We're here for you. Anytime, talk to us. Free call 116 123 or go to samaritans.ie.
Broadcasting to South Dublin on 93.9. This is Dublin South FM.
And you're very welcome back to Property Matters here in Dublin South FM with Carol Town and myself, Brian Fox. In studio, we have now Kate McQuillan, co-owner of Pet Sitters Ireland. So we've been discussing a lot about pets this evening, Kate. And as you may have heard Tim there, in that there seems to be a huge resistance towards pets coming into apartments and private houses, rented, should I say, particularly apartments. So are we becoming more pet friendly in this country?
I think we are in terms of cafes, bars, restaurants, hotels, but clearly not when it comes to where people live. We've done our own research on the number of pet-friendly cafes and stuff, and there's loads more, and people are allowing them into hotels. But when it comes to actually living accommodation, we have people contacting us every day about what can they do with their pet, because they're having to move and they're looking for temporary accommodation. So it's a huge problem.
It's a huge problem from the smaller, well, actually for all the animal charities as well,
Yes,
because the reasons for animals being surrendered. It's usually given that they are moving accommodation and the landlords won't allow. Now, look, part of me thinks sometimes that seems to be an acceptable reason to give when surrendering your pet. So, look, there's a little bit of judgment there on my part from there. But there is clearly a problem. There's particularly across apartments and developments that have management companies in place, there's a standard clause, no pets allowed. And that was, these were prepared at a time when the apartments were only meant to be lived in for very short terms. They weren't
not long-term living.
Yeah, and that needs to change. But by the way, the management companies that have those kind of clauses, generally those apartments aren't built for children either. So they're not built for pushchairs and family life. So there's a problem with that we haven't been designing apartments for people to live in. not
I
just...
don't think
Well, that's been... Sorry, Kate.
No, that's
I
absolutely
don't think that Ireland's designed the whole kind of world or the country around pets, to be honest. I mean, it's only recently that you can take your pets to places. If you look at Europe and America, they're just part of everyday life.
Yeah.
Like they're in cafes, they're in hotels, they're in airports, they're just everywhere. It's just, you go somewhere, you take your dog.
The pet pound.
It's completely different.
I was in permanent TSB this morning, and there was a beautiful little boxer dog beside me. So I can tell you that's my first time seeing a dog in a bank.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. That was in Ireland, obviously. Yeah, so look, things are changing, but it is a problem. Now, I suppose, actually, what we really wanted to talk to you about today was, where people do and they are able to have pets in their apartment. What I'm hearing more and more, again, from people who are thinking of getting dogs, but they're nervous that if I go away, what do I do with them?
Yeah.
And so I found myself increasingly saying to people, actually, of course you can take on dogs. Everybody has to go away from time to time, whether it's travel for work or holidays or whatever it is. And now there are more and more facilities available.
They definitely are.
So, and obviously pet sitters comes into that. So you might just explain what it is you do.
So what we do is a bit like friends and family. So if you're going on holiday, say you're going for a weekend away, we might come in Friday evening, Saturday morning, Saturday evening, Sunday morning, feed your dog or your cat, take them for a walk, play with them, check, the house is secure, turn lights on and off, just like a friend or family member would, really. So that's the kind of holiday service that we offer. And then what we do a lot of is dog walking. So people that are out all day, and especially now people who are adopting dogs, the conditions are that if you work all day that you do need to have somebody that can come in, because if you're working in a high pressure job, long hours, you could be out of the home 8, 9, 10 hours, and
that's my point with Tim, actually.
It's just too long for a dog. So some people would actually have 2 visits.
Now, on that point, you're a dog owner. Does the dog not rely on you from the point of view of contact with you as well? I mean, is it practical to be out of the house for so long? If you're,
I think it's unrealistic to say that somebody's going to have a dog and stay with it 24/7. And I think certain breeds do better. Some high energy dogs need a lot more walks and stuff and would be destructive.
But company as well.
Yeah, but I think if you've got someone coming in and taking it for a walk and getting it out, I think they do sleep a lot, dogs.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think people who don't have dogs don't realise how much they sleep.
It's funny because we have pet cams in our house, and when I got them I was super excited to see what are the dogs doing when I'm out. Nothing.
Yeah.
They just sleep.
What kind of pet cams do you use?
We have the Pet Cube one, which shoots out the treats.
Oh, I use that too, and people are fascinated by it.
It's really good.
I'm actually going to get myself in trouble here and say that during events like seminars and things like that, occasionally people will look over my shoulder while I'm at my tablet that is all set up, a keyboard and all, so it looks like a computer. And generally it's because I'm checking in.
The cats.
I'm checking in with the dogs that I can speak. I can see them on the camera. I can speak to them.
It's great.
And they recognise the click of the pet cubes when I'm about to throw a treat.
Yeah, they're
and you can
brilliant.
actually, the treat can be made into a game. So you can just issue the treats if you don't want them to work for it, or you can send the treats flying across the room at where they go at speed. And so then it's like if you've got 2 dogs, then it becomes a contest to see who can get the most. But either way, it becomes a game. But there are so many things, like technology is enabling this. So I think it's really interesting that most people have never seen that, and I'm always really embarrassed then if they look over my shoulder because they can see dog hair on my floor.
A lot of them do. A lot of them have the cameras in their home to check on their pets,
and they realise their pets just sleep.
Exactly. And some dogs do need the interactive treats and things like Kongs and things like that to keep them occupied. But
I'm going to have to ask you though, is it more expensive for your service rather than your service in terms of dogs sitting when you come into the house, say once or twice a day, than as a dog? What's the other term?
Like kennels?
Kennels, thank you.
Yeah.
Kennels, yeah.
Well, I should hope it is.
It would be more expensive because you're actually asking someone to come out to your home and travel out and spend the time and come away.
Sure.
But there's a lot of benefits. If you're a multi-pet household, it's probably cheaper because you're not paying per pet. And you've got that home security. Like, home security is a huge issue for people. So if you have somebody come in, turning lights on and off and just making your home look lived in. We have customers that don't have pets that just host payers to come and do that service that live out in the country because they're worried, their home's left and they've got nobody to kind of turn the lights on and off. They're away for a couple of weeks. They just want you to swing by and do that.
And you mentioned there at the start of your interview there, you mentioned that you have people telling you that they're moving home and the landlords don't accept
and they're
tenants.
struggling to find places.
Are you in a position to help those people at all? Like, what can you say to them?
You see, the problem is we could help, but it's cost. It's not a long-term solution.
Yeah.
We do have a host family service where your dog can come and stay in someone's home, but it's not a solution for somebody long-term. You for weekends away, holidays, really. Really, I think in that situation, people are looking at friends and family maybe to help out. That's what we recommend. Some of the rescue groups do have foster, like obviously you're doing.
Yeah.
That can be an option, but it is limited.
Thank you so much for leading into that, because right now, yes, I do have 2 gorgeous foster dogs, absolutely tiny.
Looking for homes.
Literally, one is actually called Tiny, but he's 2.5 kilograms, the smallest little thing. I have a teacup chihuahua and she's under 5, so 2.5 kilograms, smallest thing I've ever seen, and he's gorgeous. And then we have a Chihuahua Yorkie cross, and she's about 4 kilograms. So again, 2 tiny dogs looking for a good home at the moment. I foster them, which means the charity, when they're surrendered to the charity, in this case it's Chihuahua Ireland, and all for animal welfare with the number 4. So it's all for animal welfare. Both of those can be found on Facebook. They have Facebook pages there. So they are the charity responsible for rescuing. So I mind them as a kind of a foster home until they find their own new home. And with this particularly small one, Tiny, I need to get him rehomed very quickly or he'll never be leaving.
Just put him in your handbag and keep him.
So no, but this is it really is a concern. So actually that's my kind of personal call out to anybody who's looking for 2 small beautiful dogs.
Up, do they? A lot of people
Very
they don't want to give them up.
You're looking for an apartment, you're trying to get rid of your own place, and then on top of that, you may have been with your cat or dog for years.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's very distressing.
It's not an option, then, is it?
It is. Well, no, it's not. But I mean, I was talking to Anne outside. Like, if you have kids and family, what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do? Like, if you've got to have somewhere for your family to live, haven't you? It's
move out of the Dublin area, I suppose.
Yeah.
It would be
necessarily easier outside of Dublin.
I was about to say, I did a search on Daft for houses that allow, for rentals that allow pets, and it came in at, I think, about 7% of properties that are currently on the Daft website, if you click, that allow pets.
Only 7% of properties.
It was just over 7, kind of 7.2. No, Ireland, across Ireland. Yeah, that's what I mean. So I don't think the problem. I don't think the problem's restricted to Dublin at all.
And it's funny, actually, because we have some articles on our website about helping people, what they can do. And we get a lot of people email us from outside Ireland looking for help. So it isn't just Ireland.
It's not even an Irish problem.
Yeah, I know some places are more pet friendly, but there's still problems.
Okay, and is there something we can do? Because at this moment in time, it seems that the difficulty is that landlords don't want pets. So one of the solutions put forward by an independent estate agency in Ireland, O'Reilly's, their firm are, for landlords who accommodate pets, they charge a slightly higher security deposit, which to me as a pet owner sounds extremely fair and reasonable and a very practical solution if that's what it takes. Because if your dog doesn't do any damage, then all that deposit is returned anyway. So it seems like an infinitely practical solution. Another one mentioned was a US service for pet bonding, which I think costs... it's a security bond that Tim mentioned, might be $50 extra per month on top of your rent. That's high. Is there a practical solution that you could maybe outline to landlords? That's a difficult question.
I think the deposit is a big thing. I was speaking to some friends in America, and that is a big thing in America. You have to pay a pet deposit as well as your own personal deposit, and you pay pet rent over there. So you pay anywhere between $10 to $50 additional rent per pet.
Okay.
And there's a non-refundable deposit you pay up front just to even be allowed in the property. So it is expensive, but most properties allow pets over there within restrictions. Big dogs, not so much.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing. I think the other thing is for people to be having some kind of agreement to have someone check on their pets. I think a lot of the problem landlords has is the smell of pets. You know, people maybe not cleaning up or not, you know, or leaving
Causing
them too
damage,
long, the damage, that kind of thing. So obviously a deposit helps with that.
Our previous guest, Clare Connolly, a local estate agent and managing agent here in Dundrum, suggested that in one case somebody put forward not just a tenant reference but actually a reference for the pet from the previous landlord, which I thought was very
really
clever. Yeah, that was really clever. So look, this is definitely something. I think it's a very big problem that we're having.
You've opened a can of worms.
Yeah, so let's see.
Not pets, but, you know.
Well, let's see if we can come up with some solutions for that. So, Kate, thank you so much for joining us today. That was Kate McQuillan, co-owner of Pet Sitters Ireland. What's your website, Kate?
It's petsittersireland.com.
Okay, before we go, thank you. Before we go, just a quick reminder about their Place Tech event next week. Details on the Property District website. You can get in touch with the show by emailing hello@ipropertyradio.com or Twitter @ipropertyradio.
And that's it from us today in the studio. We'd like to thank our guests for joining us here in the studio. Also, thanks to Danny Hick, who was on the sound. Today is the final week before heading off to work in the sun, and wish him the very best of luck. At the same time next week, so from Talon and myself, Brian Fox, have a great week.